This is Renee from Meadowlark Mystic, and I am doing my last video for my Tarot and Oracle deck collection. This has been pretty interesting for me to go through all of my decks and reevaluate ones I want to keep. And I mean, I am having trouble getting rid of them because, as I said, they've kind of become like friends in the same way that books become friends. So anyway, the first deck in this set is the Polish Tarot. It looks like this. I saw this on Magdalena's channel, Wolf of Coins, a few years ago, and I really was really interested in this deck. So I purchased a copy. I have added some color to some of the cards. But yeah, so it's kind of a pip deck, but it has illustrations on them and different symbols. I liked the way the cards depicted, I mean, the majors are pretty straightforward, but like, for example, this is the 10 of coins. I like the little pictures within the pictures. And I find it's really evocative. I also like the word evocative, obviously. I've been using it a lot. This death card is really good, but it's the moon that I wanted to show you. Yeah, so man in the moon, the idea of a male moon presence is actually not as unusual as you might think in terms of world cultures. And so I appreciate that about this deck. That is the Polish Tarot. Okay. The next one is the Ancient Italian Tarot. I have edged this deck. And I was surprised at how this deck looks really good with the Dreaming Way and the Wildwood, oddly. I really like low Scarabeo cardstock. I think this deck has my preferred cardstock. So that is the Ancient Italian Tarot, and I've edged it. The next deck is the Wild Kuan Yin Pocket Edition. Yes, the Pocket Edition. This is a beautiful deck of existing art. And then on the back is, you know, text about the idea. I used to live in a place that had rolling hills like this, and the kind of wild nature of the wind and the elements seemed very representative of this. I think this art is from the far north of China, either up in Tibet or Mongolia. So that is the Wild Kuan Yin Pocket Edition. This looks really great with the Majestic Earth. The next deck is the Mother Mary Oracle. This was given to me as a gift, and I am so grateful that I wanted this deck for a while, and then I don't know, for whatever reason, I just never got it, and then I was given this as a gift, and this deck has been one of my most treasured companions on this journey that I'm on. I'm so grateful for it. It's very foundational to my spiritual practice. I live down the street from Queen of Heaven Catholic Church, and I took that as a sign when I was looking at this house. And there's a beautiful statue of the Queen of Heaven, and then there's another beautiful statue of Mary. And I've noticed that a lot of the people in my neighborhood have statues of Mary outside their front doors. So this deck is amazing. I get very, very deep readings with it. The guidebook is also great. So, you know, sometimes when a deck is really important to you, it's kind of hard to verbalize that. The next deck is the Shaman's Oracle. Oh, I guess it won't really fit in this shot. I thought I was going to use this deck a lot more than I have. I'm hoping that its time will come. I do feel that the guidebook is well written, and I do like the art a lot. Oops. Those are the cards you're supposed to pull out. So you pull those out and then see where they come up when you do a reading. Obviously, the art here is cave art that has been somewhat modified, but in keeping with the original, you know, motif. And it's extremely primal and foundational, I think, to deep work with the earth and with humans' relationship to spirit. So that is the Shaman's Oracle. The next deck is the Lion's Gateway. I believe this is a first edition. No, second edition. These are wood burn paintings. I think they're fairly large. This deck is in order. I think this is a beautiful deck, but I have not bonded with it in a way that I wish that I had. So I'm not sure if it will stay in my collection. It's one of those that I have trouble releasing because I really appreciate the art, but I have not, the readings that I've done with it have not really resonated. And that is the Lion's Gateway. Oops, I put it in backwards. The next deck is the Literary Witch's Oracle. This is an interesting deck, and I have not used this deck that much, but I love the art. And I really love I love that these are real people, or most of them are real people, and I guess they're all real people. I love how they look like real people because they are real people, and that resonates with me. Also, the kind of oracle, the simplicity of these images really speaks to me. That is the Literary Witches. The next deck is the Fairy Tarot. This deck I use primarily when I want to speak with the Fae and or the elementals on a piece of land. So I don't use this deck for regular readings. I use it when it's kind of a specific conduit for a specific kind of conversation. Recently I just did a reading regarding where to plant some trees, given some branch locations in the backyard. It was very interesting. I enjoy this deck because it portrays Fae in a darker, kind of more complicated way. And I love the animal energy that goes with it, animal and plant. So that is the Fairy Tarot. Beautiful bag made by Dawn Michelle. The next deck is the Symbolon. This is an oracle deck that is a very specific system of astrology. You can see the astrology and planets and stuff in it. I really enjoy the art of this deck. It's getting all like, anyway. But I've shared several times on my channel that this deck is very intense and will kind of go for the jugular in terms of the truth it wants to tell you. The way you read with this deck is it presents the problem, the way through, and the outcome. And then, so it's a 3-card reading. That's how the deck is meant to be used. I'm sure you could use it another way, but I use it that way. And yeah, it's, it's a really great deck, but do not go to it unless you are feeling very brave and like, I can take it in, I can take it all. Okay, the next one is the Ancestor Tarot. And this is the smaller, I think there's a larger edition. Let's see. This was printed by a printer that I'm not familiar with, and of course now I can't remember. This is the 3rd edition, but it's a US printer, I think. And I know that some people have been talking about how to keep your decks from being plagiarized. And one of the ways is to use US print companies. I think Game Crafter is one. This is not Game Crafter though. I can't remember who it is, but oh, here. No. Well, that doesn't tell you anything, does it? Anyway, all that to say, I'm kind of going off on a little tangent. Printed in the US, less likely that it will be pirated. I know Marlon, the creator, was saying that she is probably going to pull her deck off of Make Playing Cards because it's been pirated. I have a deck on Make Playing Cards as well. This one. And I don't know. I'm thinking about maybe pulling it off. So this deck is Thoth, a Thoth deck. All original art by the artist. And I had my eye on this deck for many years before I actually got it. Because at the time it was a little bit difficult to get it. The card stock that I got from this company where you can get this edition, which is the smaller edition, I guess it's poker size. I really like it. It's smooth and a little bit linen. Okay, so back to the deck. This deck is a great reader for me. Really great, powerful readings. It's one of my favorites in my collection. I really love this deck. I use this deck. Usually Thoth decks are not my go-tos. Some of the keywords or the way that some of the pips and so forth, but I still really love this deck. Even the weird faces in the sun. Yeah, sometimes, and I've said this several times, a quirkiness of a deck, how it's just not perfect, it's a little off kilter, like the face in that sun, makes me like the deck more. I think because I'm a little off kilter and quirky and strange, and it resonates with me. So this is a great deck. I'm so glad to have it in my collection. You know, if you're interested, you can find it. The printer maybe is unknown, like you don't recognize them, but it totally works. You get the deck, everything's fine. So that is the Ashera. I'm probably saying that wrong. I'm sorry. The next deck is the Russian Tarot of St. Petersburg. I like to read this deck with the Nova Tarot. That's the tiny little black square deck. I think it was one of the first ones that I showed. I went to Russia when the Berlin Wall was falling in, so it had come down, so it was, I guess, transitioning from the USSR back to being called Russia. And I remember going to some shops and seeing this art style on black lacquered wood. And it was just extremely interesting time to go to Russia and to be witnessing the end of an era. So when I see this deck, I kind of think about that time. So that's the Russian Tarot of St. Petersburg. I also went to St. Petersburg, and it is such a beautiful city. The architecture and the Hermitage Museum is really incredible. So here's the Marlon. So this is the extra lovers card, which I took out because I prefer I prefer the one that's in here. This is a great deck. Really soft, but a great reader. Clear. Soft and clear. Open and spacious. It actually reminds me a little bit, some of the cards of the Spacious Tarot, although it's not as like graphic novel as that one, but I used to have what was the name of that one? Darn it, I'm totally spacing out. Ugh. The Goddess Tarot. And the interior of the cards, these kind of remind me of that, but I prefer this. This is a great deck. Oh, it also reminds me a little bit of the Mesquite Tarot, which I know sounds kind of funny. The Mesquite Tarot and is it the White Sage Tarot? And so, I don't know. I like the watercolor work a lot. Oops, I have to put that back in this stack. Okay, we're coming to the end, to the end, to the end. Okay, that's the Marlon. I'm just going to go to this deck, which is one of my favorites. Keep it in this pouch I made. This is the Other Kin. This is one of my favorite all-time decks. I can't really tell you why, except to say that It is weird and quirky, just like me. And the amount of open space in the cards, I find, activates my inner voice so that I can hear messages more clearly. I love Frog and Toad, the nursery, or not nursery rhyme, but the children's book. I read it to my kids when they were young, and I actually have the edition still because I love it just for me. So I love that this is the Lover's card. You would think that, you know, the Three of Swords being so violent, I would not want to use it, but I don't know. Like I said, it doesn't really make sense to my rational mind why I love this deck so much. But in a reading, in real time, as it unfolds, I just find this such an incredible reader for me. Like that Ten of Swords is pretty intense. And you know, I was listening to or reading maybe a post that Shiloh Thompson, the creator, posted on Instagram, and she said that she was not trained as an artist. She never took any classes or anything, which I find really interesting. So that's the Otherkin, definitely one of my top decks. It's never far from my reading table. Okay, so the next, let's see. I think I'll end on that one. So the next decks are kind of strange and quirky decks. The first one is this. This is the card decks of the She Manual. And they're broken into 2 parts. These are the backs. Oh, this is the other one. Let me do this one first. And so I keep them in 2 separate packets. So anyway, I really enjoy the art of this deck. When it comes to you, it doesn't have numbers on it. So I put numbers at the bottom. And the way I do that is I'll put silver Sharpie first and then go over it with the color. So these are portals to kind of the Fae realm, and it's a contacted deck. I just really resonated when I saw the art. And so I wanted this deck. It's a little tricky to get it 'cause it's from the UK, and the way they talk about the decks, it's a little confusing to know if you're getting both or getting just one. So but it worked. So that is the first part of it, or the first deck, and then this is the second part. More kind of like the cast of characters, I guess. Well, no. These are also environmental. So anyway. Okay, so that is the card decks of the She Manual. It's a cumbersome title too. It doesn't really speak to like magic at all. And then the next decks are also channeled decks from John Matthews. And that are the 4 decks that come with these 2 books. So the She Oracle of the Sun, the She Oracle of the Waters, and then you've got the Moon Oracle of the She, and the She Oracle of the Fleeting Hair. So those are 4 decks. I keep them all together. They're all the same size. They have a dialogue with each other that I think is interesting. They're the same size, but the backs are all different. So this first one is the moon one. And if you're sensitive to little holes, then don't watch this part, because this whole deck is all little holes, which could really creep people out. This is the sigil of the she that he got when he had his experience with the she speaking to him. And this is the same artist that did, I believe, the Shaman's Oracle, which is interesting because it's so very different. Okay, the next one is the Fleeting Hare. The place I used to live had hares. We called them jackrabbits. They have a very intense energy, kind of crazy and fast. And so when I saw these images, I really loved them a lot. The next one, this is the sun. This is the Oracle of the Sun. These decks have a very clear voice. It's clear, but it doesn't always make sense. So I think that when you try to translate Fae ideas of reality and energy across to human ideas, it can get a little confusing. Of course, if you don't believe in the Fae, then you wouldn't get a deck like this. And then the last one is the Waters. Oops, I have it upside down. This reminds me of the white and the red sources of water in the UK. Glastonbury and the goddess, Avalon, and blah, 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 all that. Yeah, so strong, clear voice, not always immediately making sense, like not making rational sense in terms of human intellect. Let's see, and then the second to last is the Sacred Sites Oracle cards. Oops. If this box were a little bit bigger, I wouldn't keep it in there, but I actually find this deck pretty interesting and a good reader. I don't use it very often, but when I do, it surprises me. I don't love the art that much, but when you use it in a reading, it's pretty deep. The cardstock is shiny and a little bit sticky, so not my favorite, but definitely not a deal breaker. That's really cool. Oh, this reminds me of Rachel Pollack's Shining Tribe. There's a whole thing about this area. Okay, that's the Sacred Sites Oracle cards. And then the last deck is going to be this deck. And this was not planned out or anything. The Thalima Tarot. This is my, kind of like my Tarot Nui. Is that the kind of Tarot of the Night that people kind of like? The cosplay sort of. That's this deck for me. When I saw this deck, I thought it was pretty cringy. Not that dissimilar from the Witch's Tarot, which I also thought was kind of cringy. But this is much more fantasy art, computer manipulated images. And yet, I kept coming back to it and looking at the images. Yeah, and then I got the deck, and it's a great reader, and I actually kind of love it. This card and this card look so similar to me, that kind of bugs me though. This card and this card. The Six of Cups and the Nine of Cups. A little too... And she doesn't even look happy. I mean, it doesn't have to be totally Rider Waite, but I don't know. I thought maybe since I'm going through it, I'll just tell you. But then again, I love this Four of Pentacles depiction. Love that Fool. That Knight is great. That King of Cups, you know, very romance novel cover, but okay. This is good. Very much romance novel cover. I really like this Sun card. Romance novel. Enjoy that. Romance novel. I really dig it. I don't know. It just, I guess it tickles me and also makes me feel like it creates a world that I can kind of slip into, which is appreciated. I like that Ten of Swords a lot. Yeah, I guess I like it because it's kind of a dark, has a dark fairy tale romance novel aspect to it, which, yeah, I guess I appreciate that. Okay, so we'll end here. So that is the Thalima Tarot, and that will be the end of my collection. So if you didn't see a deck here and you're wondering if I have it, the answer is I don't. So thank you so much for joining me on this journey through my tarot and oracle decks, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.